Universal Orlando Resort is known for removing old rides and replacing them with new ones. Unlike their other competitors in the area, they don't have a whole lot of room to work with at their existing parks, and as a result, it's either very difficult to fit in a new attraction into these parks, or it's downright impossible without replacing an old ride. At this point, especially in recent years, we can fully expect a ride to be replaced every couple years. So that of course leads us to the question of this video: which ride will be replaced next? Now, before we can speculate on our current ride situation and which ride could potentially go next, I think it's important to take a look at old rides that have gone in the past. You may have heard me say in the past that 20 years is usually a death sentence for a ride at Universal. And as you can see here on this list, I'm feeling pretty good about that statement, as there only are 4 rides in Universal's history that have been removed and have made it over the 20-year mark. 2 of which not actually even being rides, but actually being more so shows, and one of them, the one that's lasted the longest, Earthquake, having a re-theme to Disaster in the middle of its lifespan. So as you can tell, it is no easy feat to make it over 20 years at Universal. In fact, it can even be sometimes difficult to make it to 15. I mean, just looking at the bottom of this list, Confrontation, a very popular opening day attraction, only lasted 12 years. Hanna-Barbera only lasted 12 years. And Jimmy Neutron, Hanna-Barbera's replacement, only lasted 8. Now also mind you, there are also some attractions that lasted less time than Jimmy Neutron that did not make it onto the list. But what those rides and Jimmy Neutron have in common is that they are very easily replaceable. The way the rides were built, the fact that they're a screen ride or they're a show, whatever it may be, it's very easy to replace them. So after taking a look at this list, I think it's pretty safe to say that we won't see many rides over 20 years old right on the current ride list, right? Oh my god! That's a lot of old rides, huh? Yeah. Well, you see here, folks, what we have is quite a whole lot of rides that are very easily on the chopping block simply due to age. But I don't think that all of them are prime contenders. So let's do some rapid fire. Let's get right into it, and let's start talking about whether or not these rides could be replaced in the near future.
E.T.
Starting off with the big dog, 31 years old, E.T. Of course, the only opening day ride to still be in operation today. On its surface, it seems like it would be the number 1 contender to go, but because Steven Spielberg himself has basically made threats that he will stop working with Universal and stop allowing them to use his properties if they get rid of the ride, it will not be going anywhere for as long as that man is alive. So E.T. is staying, and you know what? That is totally okay, because unlike their competitor Disney, which is so bogged down in nostalgia, where they're stuck with all these old classic attractions as majority of their rides at the resort, having just one classic attraction in E.T. is really just a good change of pace from all the other more thrilling, newer, improved types of rides that exist throughout the rest of the park. Let's talk about the rides at Marvel Superhero Island next. Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk Coaster, both of which have received at least some form of major upgrade in the last decade. Here's the thing, folks, let's keep it clean and simple with this one. These rides are not going anywhere until either 1, Marvel stops being popular, or 2, that contract they have with Marvel somehow or some way becomes void. Because right now, the whole point of keeping the Marvel land is that way Disney, their competitors, cannot use them. On top of this, they're also making a ton of money off of merchandise, and a lot of people are visiting Universal for the sole purpose of seeing Marvel. If they went ahead and they got rid of this and allowed Disney to use that, guess what? Disney's gonna get all those merch sales, they're gonna get all those ticket sales, people are gonna go to see Marvel at their park. And people say, oh, this Marvel land is free promotion for Disney's products. And to a certain extent, yes, this is true. Actually, 100% it's true. But guess who's making the money? Who is making more of the money in the moment? It's Universal. They're making money off of Disney's property. It's not the other way around. How about the rides in Toon Lagoon, Woody Woodpecker's KidZone, or the Lost Continent? Guess what? I've already made a whole video talking about these places, as I made a whole video talking about which lands I think could be replaced next. And honestly, I think that all of the rides here are more likely to go in a complete land swap as opposed to going on their own. So if you're interested in that topic, you can go ahead and check out that video later. The Cat in the Hat. This ride has fallen off more than any other ride at the resort, But you know what? I don't see it going anywhere. I made a whole video talking about how bad it's become and basically making a call to action to say, hey, Universal, do something about it. But let's be honest, the Cat in the Hat as well as Dr. Seuss are too popular for them to outright replace it. So it would have to be a refurbishment, and honestly, I don't think their targets are set on that right now. So for the foreseeable future, that's not getting changed. And how about some of the most heavily talked about options for replacement? Racing New York starring Jimmy Fallon and Fast and Furious Supercharged. Both of these rides have been panned relentlessly ever since they opened up, and people do not seem to like them. But you know what? I believe they are both here to stay, and I made a whole video talking about why I think Fast and Furious isn't going anywhere. A lot of the points I bring up in that video can easily be applied to Jimmy Fallon, so go ahead and check that out if you're interested. But I will say this about Jimmy Fallon, is that it suffers from the Jimmy Neutron conundrum, where it is very easily replaceable with something else. I think that was made intentionally. So I wouldn't be celebrating too early, Jimmy. Flight of the Hippogriff. What do you want to replace Flight of the Hippogriff with? Alright, calm it down, calm it down. Now that I've gone through the rapid fire round and I've done enough shilling for my own videos, we can go ahead and get serious. Because now we're in to the big hitters, the big boys, the guys who I think could actually be replaced within the next 5 to 10 years.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
As the oldest of my major contenders, Jurassic Park River Adventure has been around the park for 22 years. Of course, its clone, if you will, in Universal Studios Hollywood was replaced back in 2019. Replaced by what, you might ask? Well, none other than Jurassic World the ride. And when you consider that River Adventure exists in a land literally called Jurassic Park, and they are building a new roller coaster there in the Velocicoaster in this land, thus meaning that the land ain't going anywhere, you could pretty much safely say that the only replacement that this ride could see come to it is that Jurassic World ride over in Hollywood. Now, a couple things to mention about this. There were rumors that apparently Universal Orlando had a decision to make as to whether or not to build Velocicoaster or retheme River Adventure Jurassic World the ride. Obviously, they chose Velocicoaster. I have no idea if these rumors are true, if that was actually a decision they had to make, but if it was, then that bodes well for River Adventure staying. Going against this, however, the ride has seen some pretty significant deterioration in certain areas throughout the years. The ride does have a time period every year where they spend a couple of weeks closed for annual refurbishment. However, in the most recent annual refurbishment, they took out the Ultra Store and never brought it back. It's currently just a tarp that's sitting in the middle of the lagoon. Many have taken this as a clear sign that the ride is soon to go. But honestly, the way that I look at this, and this is just my speculation, just my theory, but my thought is that they've taken the Ultra Store out because they are working on him behind the scenes. This animatronic has been one of the worst performing on the ride for the last several years. It has needed a major refurbishment for quite some time. And my thought is that they are doing a major overhaul to this thing right now, and that next year, when the next refurbishment phase comes around, they will put him back in and he'll look better than he even did on opening day. So I actually think that this is going to increase the lifespan of River Adventure as opposed to point to its demise. So honestly, I don't think River Adventure will be replaced in the next 5-10 years, but of course, the replacement option is there and it's readily available, so don't hold your breath. Men in Black Alien Attack, the only other ride I'm talking about today that's over 20 years old. It is 21 this year. Now, looking past the popularity of the ride or looking past the popularity of the IP, there are some concerning issues to look at when it comes to this ride, and the main one being the ride system. There have been rumors that the ride manufacturer who made Cat in the Hat and Men in Black has gone out of business, and as a result, supplies have been tough to come by. That is the reason why Cat in the Hat no longer spins. However, we haven't seen these issues come to Men in Black yet. My thoughts on it is that they've pretty much taken all the parts away from Cat in the Hat, have put that ride in B mode, and it basically diverted all of them to Men in Black, so that way that could stay more of an intense experience. However, what's going to happen when the day comes when you run out of supplies? What are you going to do? Inevitably, the day will come. And I think Universal knows this. And I'm not sure if this ride's really going to last that much longer as a result. And hey, even if that rumor is wrong about the ride system, it's still over 20 years old. Have a good night, you're over 20 years old. Have a good night. And here's the thing too, It is not in a heavily themed area. It is not in a land dedicated or themed to it. So honestly, it's a very easy choice for replacement. On top of this, I've already mentioned this already, but you could just swap out the whole land. Take Fear Factor with you, swap out the whole land, you got a completely new immersive land in the back of the park. Speaking of Mr. Fear Factor, let's jump ahead a couple years here and look at Fear Factor, which is now 16 years old. Honestly, I'm not sure when this ride was ever popular. That could be a complete fallacy that I'm saying right now, but honestly, I've never seen this show be popular. I've never seen people really go to it. And honestly, in a post-COVID world where we're so, conscious about our health and social distancing and touching surfaces, I just don't see how an attraction like this is going to survive that. I mean, it's already been closed, ever since the pandemic started and hasn't showed any signs of reopening. I just don't see it reopening in the future. I honestly think that this could just never reopen. I honestly would not be surprised if we've already seen its last operating days. It certainly doesn't help the ride that we've already seen 2 other shows at the resort close this year, with Barney and the Blue Man Group closing. And of course, Barney, guess what, was the same age as Fear Factor is right now, 16 years old. So Fear Factor, hello. The Grim Reaper is knocking on your door. Have a good night. And let's not forget too, that this show takes up a surprising amount of land for just being a show. I mean, you talk about horror makeup show and animal actors, which I did not include on my list because I don't think that they have a whole lot of space. There's not really a whole lot you could do without them. You just replace them with another show. Fear Factor, you could replace with a ride, you could replace with a land, you could do so much here. There's so much space surrounding Fear Factor. There were rumors for a long time that Fear Factor was going to go for a Ministry of Magic land/ride. Of course, these have kind of subsided since the rumors of Ministry of Magic area/ride showing up in the new park, Epic Universe. So we'll see how valuable those are, but like I said, I mean, you could do so much here. It's basically a blank canvas, which is something that is so rare for Universal to be able to work with. Let's get back in line here and let's talk about Shrek 4D approaching 18 years old this year. Here's the thing about this. Shrek is as popular as he's ever been. He's a very popular figure. There's no doubt about that. But the issue lies within the ride itself. The ride shows a film that you can literally watch on Netflix right now. Why in the world would I wait any amount of time in line for this ride when I could just pull up Netflix on my phone while I'm waiting for another ride and just watch the movie there? On top of that, the whole idea of a 4D theater type ride is starting to become very outdated. It's not something that really fits well at a Universal or Disney park anymore. It's just not that exciting. There are way bigger and better things that exist at these parks now that deal with screens and deal with 3D, that it just doesn't make sense to have a 4D theater there anymore, especially when you can find it at your local science center. The only thing that really saves this ride for me at the moment is its pre-show. Its pre-show is literally the best pre-show, bar none, that I've ever seen in my life. It is hilarious. The cast members who run the show do a great job, and of course the script for those cast members is awesome.
Do not wear your glasses until you are seated, unless you like falling over. Please do not eat, drink, smoke, or puke. All cell phone users will be flogged. Flash photographers will be burned at the stake. You have been warned. Enjoy the show. Many are doomed.
But here's the kicker. During COVID, they're not running this pre-show. They're not running it! So it sucks. It sucks, okay? It's terrible. It's in a sad, sad state right now. And it has been a target for replacement for a long time, and it is just like, it's like gotten disgustingly bad without the pre-show. You never really noticed how bad the ride was until they took out that pre-show. It's bad. As far as what can replace it, there have been rumors of taking the Secret Life of Pets ride, which is set to open soon, whenever that park opens up in Hollywood. So we'll see what that happens. But that's rumored to come over here. You can, of course, also take what Hollywood replaced Shrek with over there, which was the Kung Fu Panda ride, which, is set up perfectly for you to be able to swap in different DreamWorks characters whenever you want, so that could be a great fit. But the one thing you have to remember about Shrek is that it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. It is like a very small landlocked position. There's not a whole lot you can do with it. Unlike something like Fear Factor or Men in Black, where there's a lot of space there to be able to do whatever you want, whatever is in your wildest dreams. Shrek does not quite have that much space to allow for that. But yeah, I would definitely say Shrek is right up there with Men in Black and Fear Factor for what can go next. And then there was one. The one that probably all of you have been holding your breath, waiting for, hoping and praying. Please, not him. That's right, we're talking about Revenge of the Mummy. 17 years old this year, it replaced Confrontation, has now outlived its predecessor by 5 years. Now this ride has pretty much almost always been on the hot seat. I mean, by the time the ride came out, only one other movie in the franchise came out, and that was more or less straight to DVD. So yeah, I mean, the series that it's based on, the OG Mummy movies, not particularly super relevant or new in this day and age. There were heavy rumors that when the Mummy movie from 2017 came out with Tom Cruise, there were rumors that they were going to retheme this ride to fit that. In fact, I mean, it was so likely that in the gift shop afterwards, they had a giant mural of Tom Cruise himself on the ramp leading down. But as we all know, that movie, of course, fell completely on its face, flopped hard, they lost money on it, and those rumors and those ideas and those plans went straight out the window and down into the sarcophagus, into the pyramid, locked away forever. Have a good night. But despite them avoiding this bullet, there has been one major factor holding them back that I believe is what could lead to its demise, and that is that it is a roller coaster. Universal runs their roller coasters year-round, okay? They get no respite, they get no rest. And as a steel coaster, though you last typically longer than a wooden one, you are not going to last very long if you are running all day, every day. Dueling Dragons lasted 18 years before they replaced it and threw it away for scrap. They couldn't even sell the ride to anybody else. The Incredible Hulk coaster was rebuilt from scratch after 17 years. Mummy this year will be 17 years old. Will Universal decide to completely gut it and start over from fresh with a new ride, or will they replace the track? Now that's the thing. Mummy is not as intense of a coaster as Dueling Dragons or the Incredible Hulk coaster, but I would still say that I am somewhat concerned about when that time comes when those tracks do need to be replaced. I will say, the ride is not at all rough right now. It really isn't. But we do know that this is what Universal does with their coasters. When you get to that around that 20-year mark, it's time for a change, right? Will they go the Incredible Hulk coaster route and just rebuild the coaster, or will they go the Dueling Dragons route and say, sweet dreams, kid? Well, there are a couple things that have indicated what their decision might be. One of those is that the ride is still immensely popular. As we all know, you guys love this ride so much. I see you talking about it in the comments all the time, saying you don't want it to go. And I hear you, I really do. I mean, I love the ride as well. You know, it's not even just one of my favorite rides at Universal, it's one of my favorite coasters overall, and I don't want to see it go either. But outside of popularity, something major has happened just recently that has improved this ride's chances of surviving, and that's that they updated the graphics on the ride. And that is a pretty good sign. Of course, they did this with Spider-Man many years ago, and now they're doing it with the Mummy. And the fact that they put that money into the Mummy shows they have great confidence in this ride in the near future, which means that it is not going to be the next ride to go. There's no doubt about that. It is going to last for at least the next 5 years, and it's going to be chilling. So you can all catch your breath. The worst has not happened. You guys are all okay. All right, great. Okay. So anyways, let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what you think is going to go next. Let me know if you think that I'm wrong or if I'm right. I don't know. Just tell me what you think in the comments. Come on now. Anyways, with that all being said, I will see you all next time. Have a good night.